I want to start by giving you the backstory of the book launch. The point of the book is that you can read the book and find out a lot about it. So you don't want to bore people by telling them things that they can see in the book. So I'll give you a bit of the gossip. In the time of Mugabe, one of my doctoral students was doing a quantitative study, PhD student, looking at manufacturing formal firms in Zimbabwe. And he was gathering questionnaires to find out how these firms were surviving. And because you can't really rely on, mail or things like that, he actually went to all the locations and spoke to the firms there and was very warmly welcomed. It was about 150, 170, something like that, firms. Very warmly welcomed. People showed him around. There were some financials that he needed. They let him look at their statements on their computers. And at the end, 9 of them flat out refused to sign the informed consent form. They just refused. They said if Mugabe were to find out they were involved in this, it's the end of them. So he said he could have pushed to say, well, it made them feel guilty, but he felt it would be unethical, so he said, okay. And he came to me and he asked me what he should do. I asked a bunch of my colleagues who are very well published and working at highly regarded universities, University of Toronto, University of Minnesota, and nobody saw a problem. They said, you need to do an affidavit, you need to explain this. They really saw this as an opportunity. On the GIBS side, it was a very different case. The ethics committee was that we gave you permission for signed informed consent forms. I went to the person who is studying ethics in research. I went to the DVC for Institutional Affairs, who's a natural scientist, who said, I'm going to send you to the registrar. And the consensus was, you may not use this. Now, the great thing is we had it, so we knew what it said. We could run it. It was a quant study. Didn't change anything. But I was so distressed because if this had been qualitative research, he would have had to throw away these 9 responses. And the reason why people wanted to not have anything to do with it was a very contested and difficult environment, which is sort of the emerging market context. Before Trump, at least, we were the people who more frequently had these ups and downs in government. And when I spoke to my colleagues who didn't see a problem, they said, norms are established by scholars. The norms of what makes for ethical research come from the countries that are most research active. And the way to shape norms is, and to shift norms, is to have scholars speak out so that there's enough consensus that we can shift a conversation. And that was at the back of my mind when the publishers contacted me and said, would you be interested in editing a handbook on qualitative research? Because it felt to me this is an ideal opportunity to gather the stories of what it takes to do qualitative research. You can do more in a book than in a journal paper. A journal paper has to be, for those of you who have submitted, 40 pages most. A thesis is 200 pages. So, there's a big difference. But in a book, you can actually use more space. So I thought, why don't we gather people who've done research in emerging markets, who can talk about emerging markets, the stories they experienced, and then what we agreed is that we would tell the stories. We would have a section that links it to the literature. What does the literature say on whatever? And then finally, we would have a section where we offer advice. This is a handbook, not as in high school, but a handbook that nonetheless gives guidance to scholars. So I went through my network. It was really qualitative in the sense it was bottom up. It was asking people who would be keen to make sense of their experiences. And we had a very collective experience where people were actually chatting in groups, small groups that I facilitated, sharing ideas, And then I made sure that we didn't have 10 chapters that would be about ethics, for example. Ethics, in fact, emerged as a central issue in this whole situation. GIBS is vastly overrepresented. There are 19 chapters in the book. I do the introduction, and one of my friends that I spoke to about a lot at University of Toronto at the end about how do you manage the review process. But the 17 chapters in the middle are these stories with people reflecting. And Gloria and Anna each have a chapter. Lisa and Louise Whitaker, who's celebrating her son's 21st birthday tonight, have another chapter. Rebecca Namatofu, who did her PhD with us, who's now at Copenhagen Business School, she's got a chapter. So GIBS is I think, fairly represented given the quality of research we do on emerging markets.